All right, so hour 3. Case studies. This kind of just goes into some of the projects I've done with some different groups, analysis, infrastructure analysis, and things like that. So really, Strava Metro is all about bringing data layers together. That's why we run it on whatever you guys want. That's why we roll it up how you guys want. That's why we do, because that means that when you guys get the data, you're already going to know the data structure. If I forced OpenStreetMap on everybody and they tried to correlate it with your data, 60% of it would get lost with the conflation, and you get frustrated, throw it out, and be back to where you were, right? That's not the goal here. The goal is to, again, give you guys data that you guys can use to help facilitate better planning on your guys' ends, right? So in this case, you see the block level data, that OD data, all that white to black in the back, with the heavy street patterns overlaid for Boston, right? And you can see those little corridors coming in now, all the different veins spiking in all throughout the city. And you can also then see where all these major different hubs are coming in as well. So, Strava Metro validating investments in cycling infrastructure. This is where I find the data to be so just visually awesome. What you see on the left is 2 pieces of the raw GPS points. They're from 2 different months, from 2014. One is from May, one's from June. One's from July, and what you can see is the blue is the one from July and the purple is from May. And sure enough, there's a big change. This was a new piece of cycling infrastructure that was opened up. And there was this obviously a shift in the cycling and population engagement and what they wanted to do as a result of this new piece of cycling infrastructure being opened. And it's $1 million investment, right? I mean, so not only that, but the city wanted to know people do anything with this? We just spent a lot of money. So by using the Metro data and actually getting, this is kind of like a heat map, and you look at it and you're like, all right, 27 dots, 30 dots, I don't know. But with the Metro, you can show like, oh look, between these 2 points, there was a solid change. We know the numbers here, so we can do a delta % change and show that, look, this street over here lost 67% of its bike trips, and from one month to the next, and this one gained a lot because it wasn't open before. But potentially, what's even more interesting is these 3 roads. This exterior bike path and these 2 roads in the middle have now gained a significant more amount of bike use. And they weren't planning on that, right? They thought everybody would just go around this way. They didn't think anybody would cut straight through. Well, now they have people cutting through new residential neighborhoods. What does that mean for that neighborhood, right? So now that they can look at that and they can go, okay, now part 2, phase 2, let's create a green lane there and protect some maybe complete streets and and try to continue to change the culture in this region. Again, same type of region, same type of area, same type of questions. This time they open up this red road, right? This red cycle path, right here, right? And this old one kind of crept up and around this way. And you can see the difference here. The blue again is from a month prior, and the red is from a month after. So again, the same as that thing. You can see that movement and change in the cycling behavior almost immediately because the cyclists just they react. They do it every day, right? And then, so what is it actually going to look like? Let me see. I want to do it to this. Just realize you're not going to be able to see, so let's zoom in. Can you see that? Not really. All right, so we'll just kind of wing it a little bit. Well, what I wanted to show was on this one path down here, the old bike path, you can see it changed from like 1,821 bike trips in May to 626 bike trips in July, right? So we've had a significant reduction of over 1,000 bike trips just in 30 days. Well, this blue path, which had 0 bike trips in May because it wasn't open, has now gained over 11,000 bike trips. So there was this big switch and change, but they knew people had started to move onto that cycleway, but what they didn't understand was how far away these people came to get there, and that's what this starts to show. So the blue is where cycle trips lost. Where there was a reduction of over 100 bike trips, and the green gained over 100 bike trips, and we can show that this was the road they were trying to pull use from, and there was a reduction. We showed a reduction of about 12%, and those guys in Brisbane, in their intercept surveys on the new bike path, showed that 10% of all the people had come from this dual carriageway road called Logan up there. So they were really excited to see that, and we were, again, able to show movement 10, 12 blocks away. And we've now done about 9 or 10 of these analyses for Brisbane that showed the difference in movement as a result of them opening up and investing in more and more cycling infrastructure. It's just really it was like time consuming, but you really have to dig into the data and try to really integrate each delta. Metro data and correlation. So this is Metro data standalone is great, and there's groups all around who have been using it with no bike counting program in place. Right? Boise, Idaho, right? They wanted to create something. They wanted a bike ped plan. They had no idea where anybody was doing anything. And so what they decided to do is purchase the Metro data to create a base map and some type of base data to allow them to get some insights into how people were utilizing their street networks. So therefore, they picked up the data, and now they have a great understanding of where people are riding and cycling within 5 minutes of using the data. I mean, that's how easy it is to use. And then what they've done from that now is put in a big counting system based upon different corridors and key places around this given city. So, but because when Strava Metro is used in conjunction with the counting program, it becomes really powerful, right? Because you can find these correlations. You can start to see how far you can push this data deeper and deeper into a network. Because really, I mean, these counting programs, whether it's an EcoTotem, which I love, by the way, or Tubes, or even a 2-hour counter on a corner, they're only as good as that next intersection. And then the cyclist has a choice, right? They can either go forward, left, right. Maybe they can even take a bike path. But whatever the number of choices they have dilutes that count value immediately by that percentage. And you don't know where they went until the next bike counter, which could be X miles away, if any miles away. So therefore, what Strava Metro does is it allows you to then create a bike counter on every single corner of the rest of your city, because you can now correlate the Strava data to the bike counter data and start to be able to see how far you can push that data into a network. Right? So let's take into example back to Seattle. They have two bridge counters. One is up here at Fremont, and the other one's down here at Spokane. When we map the two together, we can see that statistically we get some really great correlation values. 0.91, 0.94. They just really map each other. Every time that population ebbs and flows, it's really, really, really quite tightly correlated with the Strava population. It's great. That really gives us a lot of confidence in this data. I mean, we're talking 2.7% of the population at the North Bridge. They had close to 1 million bike trips go through there. What they couldn't tell you, though, with that data is that represents 11,000 unique Strava users. They have no idea how many unique users that would potentially be on that bridge counter, right? Could have been a kid on a BMX bike going back and forth at 100 times one day because they wanted to watch the little counter go up. But, they have no way of knowing that. In the Spokane Bridge, you have maybe 1/3 of the total users is the other one, maybe even like only a quarter. And Strava users has 13,000 total accounts there, which represents closer to 5%. So you have a much higher percentage down south than we did north, and therefore even a higher R-square value. So now we've got to try to figure out how do we push the values, this percentage saturation up and around, and the other one down and around this given city, so we can start to potentially have a deeper understanding of how many miles are being ridden in this whole city. What's the average speed across the whole city? What's the main corridor? What about for this one piece of road that we have no idea how many people ride on it? Can we even come up with a ballpark through Strava data? And the answer is yeah, right? So what we can do here is we can say, we knew there was a bridge counter right up here, and that one was about 2.3. The other one was way down here, and that was 5. So we're in the middle here. Let's go with like 3%, right? And so we can now go, and before we had no idea how many possible bike trips were on any of these roads. And now we can say with some level of confidence, because we have such high R-square values in both areas, and we can say that, you know what, we knew there was X number of Strava users multiplied by our multiplier. In this case, I think it was like 51. We can come up with 440,019 bike trips in the year of 2014. Right? Nobody would even try to guess before how many bike trips would be there. Is that exact? No, probably not. But it's definitely within a couple percentage points of error. Now, so you have that value for the entire network. You have an approximation of use represented by the number of Strava users on every single street in your city based upon these two counters that you can move. Of course, I would much prefer to have about 6 or 7 more counters scattered throughout the whole city to create some better correlation, but we don't have that right now. which lets us come up with some pretty stark numbers, right? I mean, 63,253,198 miles ridden in 2014. Peak commute day, May 13th. Peak month, May. Peak commute windows, and peak weekend hour commutes, right? Just things that they probably knew their peak window. They probably knew that most people rode in May, but they had no idea the total number of miles ridden. Located, so that's the correlation, and we've done this with so many different groups right now, right? We did this with the Market Street counter. This has been done with 150 counters across London, with some really interesting modeling successes there. We had some groups done it in Perth and Melbourne, Queensland. So really, it's just anywhere where there's a decent counting program that seems to correlate well, we can really map out some really interesting pretty much synergy with the Strava population.
Right. Is it reasonable to say people who pass by here, by this one single point, that's representative of the entire population? I mean, are there pitfalls or gaps in that?
Well, I think you have to figure out, I mean, like, you can say that it's representative of the population of a subset of the user group that's riding across there, right? So you know that you're representing some group because you can watch yourself move up and down with them, so you're reflecting the total population there. But I think what you really have to watch out for is how far are you going to move that out. To those are north-south. So that example, those are north-south bridge counts. Doesn't really go much to the east, right? And if you look to the east on the maps, Strava doesn't have a whole lot of use over there. So I'd be really cautious if I was really going to bring this to a town council to say, oh yeah, we got 5% over there, right? Because we probably don't have 5% over there. So that's kind of where having those extra counters really begins to let us get some insight. Commutes versus recreation. This is the next big thing. Like oh yeah, sorry.
Real quick, have you looked at correlating flow expansion for Strava flows based on travel surveys, OD studies, or anything like that?
Haven't gone there. We've been working with the CDC a little bit about trying to work with like some of the community survey stuff at the block group level to start to see what like total community engagement's like and see how well we relate to that in some cities. But that's about the extent of that. We've gone down like the survey paths. Yeah, very interesting one to go down for sure to continue to further validate the data. Yeah, we've already kind of hit on this a little bit, but again, this is like, can we utilize the data to just isolate commute routes versus recreation routes, and are they different? And just by turning one on, turning the other one on, you can immediately just see the differences. Like here, this is commutes in the AM. You can immediately see your pipelines coming in from 3 or 4 different parts, and then these 2 big veins down the middle start to light up, and that's where they're putting in green lanes in the downtown Seattle hub. And then on the weekend, it's not as hot down in the middle anymore, but all on the coasts, it heats up quite a bit, and that's because it's where your recreation riders are riding along the water. So I have a couple visuals. We'll see if they work, but this is kind of the one I really wanted to show. This is where we're going. Let's see if it works. It takes a little bit to load. So we just made some investments in Strava. What we kind of realized was that Strava Metro was growing. People were excited about it. There's a lot of interest, obviously, with you guys and a number of other states and countries, really. And we had to start investing in the product itself. And so one of the things we're doing is we hired a web GUI guy, our employee, and the idea being that you'll be able to have this come along with your data that will start to show you your flow symbolized by different views, right? So just a really simple web GUI, let you pan around. And this is, I think, I had to beg him to let me see this because this is 4 days in development. He was not happy about it, but so you can just quickly toggle on and off. Your filters will change based upon different weekday commute counts versus weekday totals versus weekday total athlete counts. So you can start to see like kind of where we're thinking we're going to be able to go with this as we begin to work on a web GUI to come along with this, right? And so when you look at weekday total athlete count, what do you know? A big bridge might be the isolating part in the city. Who would have thought, right? I mean, But everything comes down and pans around or circles around and tries to end up in South of Market and around San Francisco. But it's interesting how total unique athlete versus total unique activity can change a little bit as more and more people come back and forth here, but more distinct people come in and out of the city from the north. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're going. And then this will have this really exciting other ability where you'll be able to toggle onto a kind of like an SQL wrapper or like form that'll let you build up these custom queries to get your custom exports out, so you can view, so we can take advantage of the backend data that we do have. I mean, one thing that always comes up is how can we utilize our limited female riding cycling population to potentially try to find these routes that we feel that that women are going to take, right? And what does that mean? Can we use that to help us have a deeper understanding of the safest routes in the city? And we've been really hesitant, and I don't think we'll ever really give the ability to generate that really easily, but I think it's something we can start to explore as we can create some of these views, is can we create a path to allow us to see gender-specific or age group-specific routes and corridors and paths and things like that. The other thing, and I actually haven't even looked to see if this works in a while. But using the data, we should be able to. It's probably be totally sketchy. I haven't used it in so long. Nope. So I'm not even gonna try. But you can create, and you can look them on your own if you'd like to. But there's the ability to do really neat quick animations with the data to start to show. It's almost like Pac-Man-ish, right? That you start to see these movements and these things light up over time, and you can start to see as the data moves through what it might look like. Yeah, that's kind of the extent that I had on the presentation. I obviously would be more than happy to kind of just drive through data examples if people have questions, things like that. But I wanted to make sure that I left plenty of time for questions and things, and I think we have plenty of time at this point. Yes, sir.
So if someone transfers the data that they get using, let's say, the TomTom watch,
Yeah.
Does it create a problem extracting that data and being able to read it, or is it just as soon as you upload it into Strava, it becomes readable like all the rest of the data?
So the question was, if you were to migrate over one of your, let's say you're on a TomTom or a Runtastic type of application, and you wanted to migrate over to Strava, what are the implications of that? And I assume you mean implications for Metro as well as for just your overall activity record. Activity record, it's seamless, and matter of fact, you're probably going to get a lot more insight out of it than you ever got before, and be really happy about that. And you're also going to see that you had a lot of friends on Strava, and now you have a bunch of people to give high fives to. So that's great. In terms of the Metro product, one of the really nice things about Florida purchasing it 3 years in advance is it doesn't kind of like drop, just because it doesn't make a like a line in the sand, right? There's going to be a new delivery on September 1st. That's going to account for all the new growth. And there's going to be another one in 4 more months, and 4 more months, and 4 more months, and 4 more months after that. And therefore, there's this continuous window for people to get involved and get the data in, right? Whereas it was more challenging if Florida DOT was like, we want just the past 12 months, and that's it, we're done, right? Because then everyone who hears about it gets a little bit frustrated, like, well, I didn't know. I would have loved to have been involved in this, and I would have. But by having that open window going forward always is important, and that's also the reason why I think the unique athlete is as important as the unique activities, because with the unique athlete, everybody counts one time. Everyone gets a vote, right? If you just look at unique activities inside, then someone's going to ride back and forth to work maybe 8 times. You're going to light up their cul-de-sac like a Christmas tree, and that's not what you guys want to focus your time on, right? I mean, it's really what you want to focus your time on is that correlation of, okay, what are my roads that have the highest unique volume with the unique users over time, right? And because those are the roads that you're like, I have a really diverse population of people using this road all the time or this path all the time. That's important information to know. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think one of the greatest things, when we got the when did we get, what did Orlando get, 2014, 2013?
I think it was 2013.
So 2013 data, and now I'm extremely excited to just come and see because Sunrail opened in our area. And we know that we have, ongoing cyclists, using bicycles as their last mile connectivity. But now when I see my 2014 data, I need to see where those cyclists what roads our local cyclists are using. So we can see the efforts of our investment, infrastructure, transit investment, applying to, our bicyclists infrastructure. So we can correlate them. So it's going to be really exciting.
That's great. Yeah, and that's the other piece. If you guys start to invest in new things with this quarterly updates, you can immediately start to see that that within a quarter instead of waiting for a year in review or something like that. Yes, sir.
But what happens if I'm using the Strava app on my iPhone and I ride to the train station and I forget to pause?
Well, then we will match the train station linear network. Our community is really good about finding people who do that by mistake on roads because of the leaderboards, right? That's really hard to bike 60 miles an hour.
Do you think that like the gamification of the social aspect in the app alters the data in any way by people like using a route that they normally because they're trying to earn points or going faster than they normally would because they're trying to earn points? So with the gamification altering the data.
Yep. I think the way the gamification alters the data for me is on the weekends. I think on the weekday people aren't doing it as much, and I think back in 2009, 2010 it definitely would, and that's also why we don't sell the 2009, 2010, or 2011 data, is because it really was skewed, right? I mean, people were going out and there was nobody commuting. There was a Hammerfest only, and just like Facebook, we've morphed, right? I mean, Facebook wasn't built for 45 to 55-year-old folks, right? It was built for a bunch of college kids. And
no way.
and now it's not, right? And so Strava kind of came out of the gates like, oh yeah, we're going to be this and this, and it's just like it's the world we live in. You create something social and engaging, and it's just going to get bigger, right? And that's kind of where we are now.
Somebody online had a question. Is there a way to determine how many or the percentage of sidewalk users who are bicyclists?
So the question was, can we figure out how many users are potentially on a sidewalk versus on a road? The spatial tolerance. So this goes to spatial tolerance, right? And here's kind of like we'll kind of talk about cellular data versus M7 chip data versus GPS data. And so cellular data, right, comes out. It's not triangulation. It's more about cell towers, how far a pulse gets, where you hit, and then the next time you pulse, next time you send data, and it's just kind of like going back and forth, trying to like pinging you in these cones, right? So they can figure out like you're moving from A to B fairly well, but they really can't give you very on a road or things like that, and speeds and things of that nature at this point, at least, especially for cycling and pedestrian data. Now, the M7 chip. Which is kind of what Moves and Human uses because it's kind of what they call a passive always on network, right? So it's supposed to be able to detect if I'm, walking, like my cadence is this, and the phone should be able to kick on and be like, oh yeah, you're walking, right? And then if I pick it up, I'm running, or if I'm cycling, I'm doing something different. And they're okay, but they have a spatial tolerance of about 300 meters, right? You're never going to you're never going to be able to analyze a street, much less a set of streets with that kind of a data set. But again, it will show you pretty decent movement from zones, and it will give you a pretty decent heat map, right? Because it's going to heat map, it's going to saturate, and it's going to all work out okay when you're zoomed out looking at a heat map. It's going to be like, oh yeah, people ride bikes. With the GPS chips, if everybody was riding around with a Garmin 1000 that would cost $1,000 on their handlebars, we'd probably be able to start to differentiate between road and sidewalk, because the corridor, the GPS variance, but move to move is closer to a meter with those, right? But when you start to put a iPhone 4S at the bottom of your backpack next to your metal lunchbox, and you're in these building corridors, it's just ricocheting everywhere, and it's really hard to be able to differentiate between probably like 5 to 10 meters at that point, which is going to, of course, take into account the sidewalk. So unless that sidewalk deviates quite a bit from the road, no, it's really hard.
So to follow on with that question, some roads will have sidewalk and then dual carriageway, so a line for one road, one side of the road, and a line for the other side of the road, and maybe another sidewalk. Would it be best to summarize that? Because you're not going to be able to tell this person was definitely on the sidewalk, this person was definitely in the eastbound travel lane, this person was definitely in the westbound travel lane.
I would pretty much, if you have a dual carriageway and you think you have a sidewalk, and Navtech actually has the sidewalk, because I didn't really know if Navtech really maps sidewalks, then I would say that, yeah, I would ignore the sidewalk at that point and just assume that you use my directional compass and say, like, that's supposed to be on that side. We have done some work with trying to get people onto that. So to do sidewalk analysis, what you have to do is you have to make your buffers really, 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 really small. And so you lose a lot of data, right? But you can start to rein in that spatial accuracy, because what you can't have happen if you try to do sidewalk analysis with road analysis, you can't let those buffers bleed on top of each other, right? Because if they're bleeding over each other, then you're getting duplicate counts. So instead of having like a 25-foot-meter buffer that's grabbing a bunch of data and making sure you get all the drift, now you're down to like a 5-meter buffer, and you have 2 5-meter buffers. So you're missing a lot of the outside stuff. So it's doable, but it's like you're focusing on precision at the loss of saturation.
I have a question.
Sure.
For communities that receive this data, like, what are the top 3 things that they've used it for around the country?
So the question is, for communities who receive this data around the world, what are they doing with it? It's just what seems to be the general theme. So the way we've been approached for data typically has either been from a community going, we're trying to redo our bike ped master plan, and we just need some new updated data, some nice new maps and some information to help us further plan this out, right? So we need some core cycling routes. Let's create some good copy, some good literature, some good mapping that we can have in there. Vermont, for example, is using it to do a kind of almost like a off-road tourism master mapping plan. They wanted to actually see not the commute routes. They wanted to know what was happening on all their state roads across their entire state, right? Because they had no idea. Everyone only cared about Burlington. And they were just like, we had no idea where anyone was riding up Moosilauke. Or, Moosilauke's actually New Hampshire. So when anyone was riding up, like, anywhere in the greens. So that was what they wanted to do. They wanted to actually get that indication of who was using the data in the hills. It's been interesting. That's actually what Oregon reached out to us in the original, because they had really good data in Portland, but they had no idea where anyone else rode in the entire state, right? And being Oregon DOT, that's quite an undershot for them, right? Because there's a lot of people living outside of Portland. That's two. Like I said, Boise, Idaho, the immediate thing they're doing is they're trying to actually lay out a bike counting network. Like, they wanted to be able to do a bike counting network, but they figured they might as well drive that decision with data to be able to put the counting systems in place. And actually, it was one of the first things that the Oregon DOT did as well. When they received the data, is they overlaid it with all their bike count data and realized they had their bike counter on the wrong side of a bridge. So they were like, oh, that's why it's 0. Move it to the other side. But whereas Brisbane, they're really focused on this infrastructure stuff. That's the first thing they asked, right? We want to know immediately what our cycling population is. And they're really all about the heat maps also. They got custom heat maps in every single iteration. They use it for constant referencing whenever someone calls up and it's like, people bike there? And they just pull it up, Google some type of satellite view, and they go and they send a screenshot and they say yes. So that's what they're utilizing the data for. That's the key. I mean, it's either groups that are just going, I just need to know what's happening. Oh, and then the third one is like Seattle and Boston, right, where there is actually an engineering firm contracted with the project already in mind, some of a corridor analysis with recommendations, and they want to have a deeper insight into cycling behavior. And so the engineering firm is the catalyst behind getting the data to help them drive better information. So most of the engineering firms that we work with, VHB, also a tool, most of these groups have already all had a copy of the data and used it in a project at this point, with the idea being that if any city or group puts out a bid and there's a group that's already been using the data, they're going to walk right in and be like, we got the data. We know it already. Let's just go with it.
Well, the question was, I believe, what would be the data used for?
So it would be used directly to find the paths and paths around a region.
Around the region?
Any region, yeah. I mean, like that was, so that would be what you would try to do if you were interested in, for example, just Tallahassee. You would just zoom in on Tallahassee, extract all that data out, and try to focus just on where the paths are around Tallahassee.
Okay, well, most pathways are existing already. So the data would help me to find my route.
The data would tell you if
I need to write
the data would tell you if anyone's using them
at that moment.
over the past 3 years. Right, because it's a historical database with an ongoing flow. So it lets you be able to see, are people using this like we thought they would be using this data, using this infrastructure that we built? Like, for example, in London, we were there last week. The TfL is investigating these things called super cycleways. And we were able to overlay all of our data with their super cycle highways that they're trying to put together. And we found that, yeah, 75% of them are actually being utilized pretty well. But there's this one that they're promoting the heck out of that nobody's using. And they're really trying to get people, they're saying what a success it is. And we're saying, nobody's writing this. Like, you guys are missing something here. There's no activity happening on your new cycle highways. Why? You know, and we went back and forth and did some analysis, and it's because there's 2 intersections before that are completely just insane. And you can see everybody getting to them and going, yeah, well, the superhighway is this way, and I'm going like this, because that's too hard to get from here to here, even for any cycling population. And so, like, you know, on and on. I mean, you can go. The other thing they did with London is we created, we took all their crash data and started to rank all their crash data with left-hand, right-hand turns, right? And so we can start to isolate left and right-hand turns with the GIS, because this is where just doing GIS like analysis really comes into play. Like, you can find angles that are tighter than other angles for left and right turns, right? And you would imagine for a cyclist in the States in particular, making a left turn is hard, right? Because you got to come all the way over here, cross potentially 1, 2 lanes, get over, and then cross all the lanes, right? And so if you find some intersections that potentially have had impacts, crashes, things like that, then isolate and then see those with use patterns, you can start to then potentially dive further in. It just gives you these views, this new quiver of tools that shows you cycling use as opposed to car use, which we all know. I mean, there's a ton of data about car use on the roads, right? And this is finally a set of data about cycling use and pedestrian use on the roads. You're welcome.
What do you think is the usage? So at least here in Central Florida, commuting, utilitarian purpose cycling is kicking off. Where I live, you know, I would certainly not consider ourselves at any decent level yet, but we're getting it. So my question is, you know, in order to use the data like you just said for, you know, for the crashes, because we actually do have our crashes for the entire state of Florida already in an S3 format, so we can geocode it and everything like that, like you were just saying. What do you think is the usage level that we need to be at for the commuter? Because right now, you know, based on the 2013 data that we have here in Central Florida, it was definitely a little bit more heavy on the recreational side.
Right.
I'm hoping that the 2014 data shows something completely different and so forth. So at what level do you think it may be good to start comparing the crash against, you know, the Strava data?
I don't think there's any reason to ever not start. I mean, like, it's just one of those things. You're still going to be able to isolate your primary corridors based upon recreation or on commute. Again, I think it would be, if you have most of your crashes happen in certain time frames, then extracting those time frames out and dealing with the subsample you are. Again, it goes back to Cyclo-Philly was also excited about about their small number of small sample users, because it was data. It's still data. It's still some type of a sample. So again, you can try to utilize these samples as they are, because there's going to be some towns and the villages and communities within around Florida that we're going to have some pretty low numbers in. The idea being, like, there's still numbers there. Let's grow those numbers and see how we continue to do it, and see where we are at this time next year, which actually might be a really fun conversation to come back like in exactly 1 year to see like where everyone is at. No, let's go for it.
One of the questions from online was, how does the data deal with multimode commuting, i.e. walk, bus, walk, or bike on bus?
Good question. Since the Strava data like application requires you to choose activities, it's going. What we do find is that people will start up a lot of rides in a given. Actually, I think of a cool PP I can show on that. They'll start up a ride at a bus station, right? Or at the train station, and that's kind of where you start to be able to see some of that multimodal movement. But what people would do is they would have to then create a view. So here, check this out. So this is maybe sort of. Never seen it do this way. Okay, great. So
Your presenter view.
oh, that's cool. I've seen that one. Okay, so what you can do is, this is an AM commute window, and with this little red dot right here, this little one down low, I couldn't figure out what was going on. So this is all the starting points, starting polygons in Seattle for just mornings. And what you see is a lot of orange and red up here in the residential area, a little more down here, but lots of blues down here in downtown, right? As you would imagine, everyone's kind of waking up, transporting down there. But there's this red spot right here that's totally throwing me off. It's a ferry terminal, right? So a lot of people are coming in, they get off the ferry, they fire on their Strava, ride to work. So the multimodal, it requires a little more effort, is what it really boils down to. You have to be able to, you have to be switching and toggling back and forth between, logging a ride or logging a run. We don't log buses or trains, but we figured you guys have good data sets on that and good information about that level of multimodal movement just through tickets and, things like that.
Brian, I've got a question from somebody on the line, Dave Soloff. Dave, I'm going to unmute your line so you can ask a question. Go ahead.
Okay, and this may be a question more for somebody from the state, but will there be any kind of support on, because what I'm envisioning is I'm in the IT department and I'm, a GIS analyst, and, I'm sure the planners, once they look at the data, will have questions, they'll want to extract certain things from it, and they'll come to us, and then, we've learned from this presentation some of the workflows for extracting that data, but if we, kind of have any questions or we are unable to sort of extract what they want, will there be a point of contact with whom, I don't know if that person would be with the state that would sort of help us work through those issues?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mentioned at the very beginning Christopher Francis, who is going to be my primary point of contact within DOT. So so he would be our point of contact to kind of talk through some of those issues.
Okay.
Yep.
Phone number?
I'll follow up with everybody with an email with his contact info.
Great.
All right, with everybody that's registered on the go-to meeting, we'll follow up with that information. Is that all you had, Dave?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I mean, on that note, like my role is becoming customer success, right? So if you guys aren't being successful, then you can come back to me at some point. So
yeah, so there's going to be a learning curve on our side to work through this. We probably won't have each and every answer overnight, but I do anticipate kind of working through that. We've got a great team here, and I think now would be a great opportunity to thank a lot of people to make all this a reality come true. I know years ago I started the discussion with Gabby with Metroplan Orlando. Thank you, Gabby, for informing me the use of how you all are using the Strava data at a local level. You did your homework, and I appreciate that. And then, we had talked about acquiring it here for FDOT, and had a lot of hoops to go through, and so I want to give thank you to Sarita Taylor here that really helped contractually making it a reality. And then Sean Davis has been helping me on the GIS, the data side, because I'm not a GIS data power user. So I've been relying on him to answer some of these questions that the folks online have been asking. And then Brian, it's been a pleasure working with you, and I really look forward to being proactive in addressing bike-ped safety, and having your data as one of those elements that we take into account. So,
Great. It's been fun, Joe. Yeah,
Okay.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
So right now, I know in this room we're all giving ourselves a big group hug. So, are y'all doing a group hug there? And then if you're online, you could give yourself a little hug. You know, maybe pinch yourself to wake you up. No, I'm kidding. So I want to say thank you to everybody that participated. I will be in touch via using your contact info that you used for both the folks online and those folks that worked with Sarita for the folks that are down there in Orlando. So that's all I had. Did you have any other closing comments, Brian or Sean, on your side there?
No, I mean, I just want to thank everybody. This has been great. You guys have been an incredibly engaging audience. I love the questions. When the heat maps and everything came out last May, it was everyone in the bike ped, most people in the bike ped industry were like, really? Strava? Now the conversation isn't really Strava. It's, wow, how do we continue to make this better? I think we've learned a lot. The community's learned a lot. And so it's just really exciting to be here, like talking like this, because I think we hoped that this would have been kind of where we are at this point, and I'm glad to see we are here. This is really great.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks again to everyone who's participated, and just keep a tune on what's in your inbox for any further information.
And we'll see everybody tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we'll be at the data symposium.